together. I planned just a very open-ended opportunity to reflect on the Meekhof lectures. I also know that some people were able to attend and some folks weren't. So we're just gonna roll with it. If we're talking about something you have no idea, let us know. And if you were there and you have insight or thoughts to share, please feel free to do so. I'm also going to give the caveat, I have to pop out at 9:15 really quick to run something at the choir and then come back. So it's just an exciting Sunday morning. But when is it not, right?
Yeah.
Well, as a way of getting us started, I figured I would show us the same video that Larissa used in her lecture on Saturday. An adorable little Pixar short about a ball of yarn named Pearl.
Okay.
It's
I didn't
the
get to
cutest
see it.
thing, and also I think will be a good reminder for those of us who were there, and a good check-in point for those who weren't able to join us. So we'll watch that together, and then we'll debrief and see what we're thinking. Like I said, pretty adorable.
Yeah. We packed a lot of stuff in that one.
Yes, absolutely. So Larissa Kwong Abazia, who was our Meekhof lecture speaker, was used this video to kind of help illustrate some of the things we're talking about around culture and questioning and being in conversation, as well as talking about communal change, right? This was our buzzword for the month of January in our ACE classes, and trying to understand different ways that we might get there. But I'm curious of our thoughts on this video, or anything someone would like to share about their experience at the Meekhof lectures. Yeah.
Pretty obvious that they didn't like change too much.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted Pearl to be like them. And then she realized,
we lost our volume on the home front.
Yeah. Okay. I couldn't hear. Is this?
I think we're losing it.
Yeah, my audio cut out too.
So did ours.
Well, Jack, it made me think of corporate life. And are you wearing the right suit and have the right color tie?
It looked a little familiar from the early days of IBM.
How about you, Ethan?
Well, things are coming along good here. But, you know, I wasn't there live for the Meekhof action, but I did catch the pastor from New Jersey's message on Sunday. And, you know, I think it's kind of in line with our ideas of the thriving congregation in regards to how can we, you know, look at things maybe openly and accepting others of different backgrounds and different things. And I think that's been our objective at Newport. That certainly has kept me there because of trying to be open to everyone. And so, but
I think are we back with the party? I think we're back with the party.
Yeah.
Let's see. Is it working now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a comment about, I did not see the Meekhof, but my initial feeling was about how I feel around very young people, my grandchildren and college students, that they're in a different world. And at the very beginning, one of the things I noticed was the guy standing around the water cooler. Mm-hmm. And I know kids these days, if you were to say, oh yeah, it's a water cooler thing, they go, what's a water cooler? You know, that's how far out of tune I mean, things that I see that are common. A water cooler question, a water cooler discussion. Well, maybe that's kind of like our coffee hour. We have our coffee hour fellowship and all those things. Well, you know, the younger people, maybe that's not where everything happens because
Person on the left in the front.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's totally inside language. Yeah.
Yeah.
Out of Pearl, how do you start that?
Yeah.
You know,
That's a good one, Chris.
Because we don't know you know, we need to learn. So, and anyway, so how do you get the ball rolling?
You need that grain of sand in the oyster.
Yeah.
Right? That's how we get the pearl.
Yeah.
That's great. All right, well, I'm gonna pop out to meet with the choir, but please keep the discussion going on the video or maybe anything else folks might have learned. I'll be right back.
On Friday, I guess, they had all these words on the table and you had to pick one. And my word, that was more of a goal word, I guess, for you. And mine was bold. And I thought about Pearl being bold. But, you know, sometimes change takes a little bit of boldness, which is not my comfort zone. That's why I picked the word. And how do we be a little bold? Yeah, you know.
Chris, this is Ethan, and I find it very hard today listening because there seems to be a real echo where your voice is not coming clear. So but I think that's in conjunction with my symptoms of recovery here. I don't have all systems go either to talk, but I don't know. Are the others hearing the same?
It's a little distorted. But
yeah, it's a lack of clarity.
I have the same thing. Everything sounds a little distorted these days. I have a question about Pearl, and I think, are we beyond, well, like you were saying, Bill, I wonder if we're beyond the era where Pearl had to become like one of the guys and be accepted because she could play the game like they did. And if she could have just been accepted as herself. I mean, it seems like, do you think that's happening to people when they're in younger circles? Just they don't have to conform to I don't think there is a norm anymore. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, that's why. I think we are beyond the point depicted in the video. I think we see the balls of yarn, we see the pearls, we see that all of that out there, and we have awareness established, but we haven't really embraced and brought it in.
Right. And how do we do that? You know, how do we? Because I think, if we don't know what they want, or you know, how do we make ourselves approachable?
How do we make people feel that we like them just how they are, even though it isn't necessarily fitting into any sort of expected cultural norms. That's what I think is happening, is that there really aren't any clear expected and stiff cultural norms like there used to be. I think things are a lot more flexible now.
And yet our church service is anything but, right? I mean.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point, Chris. Yeah, it's definitely got its.
But you know, that idea of liking people just the way you are, you know who that reminded me of? Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So that's been around a long time. We've been
Yes,
preaching that a long time.
yes.
But I wonder, even this new generation of kids, I mean, they know it from probably the movie and stuff, but not from TV. If he hasn't been on TV for a while, you know. Yeah, well, that's true.
But Adam took you to the theater. The young woman was so surprised.
And Jan, I agree with you, Jan. We really do in our service. We have the starts at 9, feels like 10:30. That was in the video. Yeah, that kind of happens too. We have the water cooler. You know, do a lot of people know the sacraments that we take for granted, that we know have been around for hundreds of years. So of course, everyone knows about these things that have been around for hundreds of years, don't they? And they take it to heart just like we do. I'm not, yeah, I see some analogies there. Very good.
Well, my
Although
question.
I think there's also people wanting to understand tradition. And I think there must be a way where you can share the tradition in a way that isn't intimidating. And and I and I think if you're also flexible to making, I guess, minor alterations to the tradition, um, that needs to be communicated too. But I mean, there is a tradition to worship, and if someone comes to a church, that's kind of what they're expecting to see. And I think people are willing to go along with where they themselves decided to go. And if people make them feel comfortable and willing to sort of explain the tradition or whatever, I mean, I think we can't, there's just no way to be everything to everybody all the time. I mean, there's a point where people do have to, when they come to a place, need to feel welcomed and open in their minds to learning what's going on, because they made the choice to come in the first place. So, you know what I'm saying?
We do have something now. It's in that. Is it in the pews, Cindy? The usher's got a copy of a new flyer that sort of explains our worship service.
Right.
But
Yeah, worship. Yeah, we have a flyer on that now, which is a great step forward.
Mm-hmm.
So place in that order of worship, it will explain to someone what is the water cooler.
Great.
Well,
We've solved it. Yeah. I mean, maybe not water coolers specifically. Yeah, but it will, the new flyer that we're gonna print this week when Peggy's feeling better, is gonna just kind of show the very general, we open with announcements and do a call to worship. We do a call to confession, and assurance of pardon. It kind of explains just enough information about what's happening and a little bit of why we do it. So that more folks will know what's going on. Or one church that I worked with once, they went to slides only and no bulletins, and realized some folks with different values of experience will get very stressed not being able to see what's coming next. So a kid with ADHD stepped up and said, I will not be able to pay attention if I don't know how much time is left and the things that will come next.
Giving us bulletins when we came into the church, that just killed me.
Yeah. I think we lost something in terms of accommodation of new folks when we stopped handing out bulletins. So hopefully this will fill the gap a little bit. Somebody coming brand new thinking, what are we up to? That the intent of this generic flyer? It'll kind of show the flow, or will it be Sunday specific?
Yeah, it'll be more generic so that we can have it printed and left in the pews. But absolutely, if we try it out and it doesn't work, or no one uses it, or something else would be better, then we'll do something different.
Yeah. The other thing that ushers can do is, recognize people who are new and ask them, would you like us to introduce you to someone to sit beside you? And they can say yes or no. I remember when I first came to the church, Cindy Resbeck, isn't that you back there? I remember I ran into Lawrence's were the first people I ran to in the parking lot. And I was pretty early because I wasn't sure I could find the church. So, but anyway, Cindy, when I came in, she says, is there anything we can do for you? And it just popped out of my mouth. And I just said, yeah, bring somebody friendly to sit by me. And they brought Jackie Tanner. So anyway, that made all the difference. And it was just such, I didn't even think about saying that. It just popped out, but it made it wonderful. And then Lynn Lambert came over too. So it was all good. So I think offering that possibility to people that look new, and they may not, some people do want to be alone. They've got things going on they just need to focus on. But I think that would be a good question for an usher or a reader, to ask someone that came in that looks like they haven't been here before.
That's exactly what Pearl did, right? Like she out of the elevator and invited, I can't remember the yellow ball char's name right now.
Lucy.
To be able to go out of your way and make that relationship and connection, because that's going to last a lot longer than I hand you 7 documents so that you can do this by yourself. You might then still understand what's happening, but it won't be that personal connection that really, I think, makes a difference in communities of faith.
Some of you have heard my story, but we joined a church in New York specifically because we went to a Presbyterian church there that looked like a cute New England church that is in Flushing, Queens. That's how we chose it. And somebody said to me after church, man said, my wife isn't here today, but she'll be here next week. Not knowing anybody closer than Ohio when you'd moved to New York City. He went back to meet his wife the next week. And that was the best thing that happened to us in 6 years in New York. And I never forgot it.
That direct invitation. Sorry, I would selfishly point out it matters a lot more if lay folks do that than if I tell you to come back next week. But you're so right. Yeah, I'll give you something very specific to look forward to, or a reason to come back besides just we hope you liked us enough. Yeah.
Because the paint job on the church was cute.
That's all right. Katie found Jesus because of a cupcake. So really, the options are endless here. Yeah.
We talked about the quality of the audio this morning. Is there a different microphone, kind of a room microphone that's sometimes being used? It sounds like the echo off the walls is more predominant today.
Oh gosh, yeah, we're trying one that at least it's the same microphone we normally use, but we're trying to right here by us.
Okay.
Yeah, trying to make it longer so that you can hear other folks and not just the leader here.
Yeah,
it work, Jack?
Well, it just seems like we're hearing more, like was mentioned earlier, more echo off the walls. So it's loud, but not really clear.
Yeah.
Could be the placement.
Yeah, well, maybe if I take it out of the middle of the room.
Yeah.
Try this.
You've got a tough audience out here. We are the perfect people to be testing this.
Right.
with our old ears.
Oh, that's good. And that's, another key for us is making sure that things are accessible and we you to learn and grow in that way too.
Well, that is important because if you have someone new come in on Zoom, they're probably not going to be comfortable saying,
I can't hear you.
your audio sucks.
Right.
There must be something wrong with my ears because the audio is coming through clearly to me. So
Oh.
I don't know what's going wrong.
Hey, we'll come over to your place then.
You know, I'd like to make a comment. Let's see if my mic's on here.
Yeah,
It is. It is.
Okay. You know, when we look at the welcoming and the pastor that was with our Meekhof series, she acknowledged that all churches are kind of going through this stage of fewer numbers, but you know, to find reason why we are coming to church is, you know, I think to give acknowledgement of our Savior and to have involvement with the rituals of Bible. And I think what has been a big part that's been missing here is when pre-COVID we had the capability of a contemporary worship and a traditional service. But I really think once we have stopped the contemporary side of music, we really have lost a lot of the kids that were there that are still part of the families that are coming to church at our age. And I think somehow music is a very, very pivotal part of music. And I think we've been very fortunate for where Chris has jumped in after we lost this contemporary side and has done a good thing on the traditional side. So I just think if it's learning from other churches that still have a great call for kids to come, or even middle-aged families with kids, you know, I think the hospitality is there with us to greet people and welcome a younger voice. And I'm kind of going through this in preparation with the nominating committee, just knowing what a loss we have of a pool of younger people to become new leaders in our church. So I think it's looking at a lot of things here that worked at one time to have a younger audience. So that's my observation. And I think that the pastor talking about Pearl and all this, that was a really clever presentation to start today for us. But I think there's a lot of things there that we have to look at ourselves and say, are we making things where everybody could participate and want to come?
You know, it might be worthwhile just to ask, and our younger families aren't that young actually, but you know, what their I don't know, maybe just feelings or reactions or what they conceive it's like to be a deacon or an elder, and what about that is appealing to them and what about that isn't.
And I think that's the big key, Jan, in these conversations about our continual growth and paying attention to who's not here or insider language that we might have. We have to be open to some criticism, some growing edges, if you will. That really helps a lot because we can't just ask, well, what went well? What did you like about our service?
Aren't we wonderful?
Yeah, but you know, were there questions you had that weren't answered? Were there, you know, things that you missed, or did anyone actually come over and shake your hand in passing of the peace kind of time? Last Sunday, we had a young family visit. It's a friend of mine, and she is also a pastor. And so I sent her an email, to connect and say it was great to have her, see if they had any questions. But I also said, give me the real scoop. Because I know that pastors in particular are rather judgy about other churches. He spoke very highly of, the welcome they felt, the number of people who made sure they had access to the nursery if they wanted it, that they, understood what was happening. And that made me feel a little better, at least for pastor critique. So folks who are familiar with church things, that welcome piece was there that you were talking about, Ethan. And that hospitality is a real strength of ours at Newport.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That baby was pink.
That baby was really cute.
Darling, darling. I was just thinking too, last Sunday I was lucky enough to sit beside a man who has been a part of Newport off and on for a number of years. And when I sat beside him, he said, I just love this church. And I thought, how lovely is that? And then he told me that he and his wife are moving to Portugal. So I was thinking it would be nice to talk to him and ask him, what is it about Newport that you just love? It was so good to hear him say that. I just love this church. And so I hope he's coming back today. He said, I think they're moving in March or April, but he did mention that he wants to be back before he goes. So his name is Steve Benjamin, and he's a big, tall guy, and he's just as nice and friendly as can be. And maybe we can connect with him and find out what is it about Newport that he just loves, and maybe we can build on that.
Well, that's a wonderful lead in, Lynn. Steve is part of my ministry unit as a deacon in Issaquah.
Oh, good.
And I am going to have a conversation before he goes to Portugal over coffee, and he knows of my illness. So he's been kind of a joint. I told him I am going to so deem him a deacon at large as he goes to Portugal, because he is just a wonderful guy. Came with pastor training from his own parents. So I think he's a pastor's kid. He knows what he saw in our church off and on that brought him back. But to be more clear on that, maybe I can ask him in a farewell here of what that looked like. But but that's the age of the family. His kids are grown, they're all adults. But I just know that there was something there that brought him even before I knew him as a deacon.
He was very anxious to be a part of the Bridge Ministries dinner. He came over to the Senate board one Sunday and said, what's this all about? What can I do to help out? And he did come. He played several roles that evening. So I know that was one of his passions, apparently.
Did you have something to say?
I just wanted to say Ethan had a point about the music, the contemporary music. I don't think it'd hurt to have some contemporary music mixed in with traditional.
Yeah,
if we could. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I think that helps a lot. Music is kind of important.
And even just to stretch ourselves with the things that we might be familiar with. We talked about that some last weekend, or was that last weekend with Larissa, that she was talking about singing a hymn. Is it Japanese?
Yeah.
And she said, folks said, well, I hope we never do that again. We will, right? It's good for us to be uncomfortable and kind of find some of those boundaries, or to experience something new and different. Imagine what it would be like to speak a different language that you never get to hear in church. And for someone to take the time to sing a song in your language, or insert anything, to see yourself reflected somehow in worship. is really meaningful. And so absolutely that can apply to age.
Yeah,
And,
well,
you know,
it's
Excuse me.
So I thought Ethan had a good point about that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Any other takeaways or things you appreciated about the Meekhof lectures this year and or the Pixar video for Pearl?
You know, one of the things that Larissa gave were some of her examples, and I don't know if anybody captured those about, I wrote a few down and now I can't even remember them. But there were some audio issues for a significant amount of time on Saturday on the Zoom. And so I don't know if anybody captured those examples, but I just thought they were helpful. I'll have to look up the few that I got, and maybe that would, kick up some other memories too. But they were examples of how to, just look in a way that we don't usually look at things. Who's not there? Kind of it's easy to see what you're doing. It's harder to see what you're not doing, and those were the really good questions. And so if we could, if anybody could remember what some of those not doing things were, I would really like to, make a list of those for myself anyway.
Her circle diagram was small enough print that I had trouble seeing it,
Yes.
even on Zoom. I don't know if it was visible to the congregation or not. It might be nice if that could be copied and distributed without violating anybody's copyright.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Jack.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a little hard for us to see as well, but we do have the slides. She shared those with us and invited us to share them as well. So I'm happy to send those out. Yeah.
I think that'd be helpful. I think there was some content there that we missed.
The one session that we came to in person was the first night, and the part that I appreciated that day was the family tree we were to fill out. It was very interesting to see, to remind myself about my roots and my branches and my leaves and my and my fruit. That was a big takeaway for me, was where did I come from in the first place?
It was more like what value-wise and
Oh,
things.
yeah. So we each got a picture of a tree, and we would walk through the different parts. So we would talk about the roots and the things that ground you. The trunk was kind of your core and what matters most to you. The branches were things that were supports for you. The leaves were growth that you either are experiencing or hope to be experiencing. And then the fruit was the harvest from your tree. So the things that you're seeing. Yeah, it was really helpful. I agree, Sharon, to be able to be reminded of that. And I think it sort of gets to Lynn's point about Steve of, what do we love about this place? Let's continue to cultivate those good things. And maybe in the things that we talk about that we love, that might help us see something. If we look at the whole of Sunday morning worship, and the thing we love the most is the time before and the time after. Something in the middle.
Is the what?
Just for example. So yeah, I think it's really helpful to be able to reflect. And it's sort of like the scientific method. It's going to continue happening. We have a chance to reflect and to try something new. And then we need to reflect again and see how we might be able to do it better or differently. And then we try again. And I think that's especially important for us as a faith community and, some older folks in our congregation. It can be really easy, in my opinion, especially in the church, to get in these cycles of, well, this is how we've always done it. But we can also be open And we are
A little change.
yeah, a little change here and there, doesn't have to all be at once. That can kind of help us to expand and consider some new things along the way too.
And that was one of the things she emphasized was the trying, the trying.
Yeah, keep on trying. Yeah.
Try it. If it's, and failure is okay. She, you know.
Yeah.
You know.
Because failure teaches you what you need. Okay, that didn't work, so let's try something else. Yeah. Can't be afraid to keep trying new things.
But I also think sometimes we try things and we try it once and it sort of, to her point, we try it once and it doesn't work and then we give up. Versus sometimes you need to try 4 or 5 times and then see.
Maybe 10 times.
Yeah,
maybe 10 times is right.
You know, and then see, because yeah.
For sure. And she gave us a lot of examples from scripture that I really appreciated of, you know, Moses and how Moses didn't really fit into either group that he was representing in different parts of his life. And he, you know, was very nervous about his language. He probably had an accent, and that might have been what Moses was worried about in terms of leading people and thinking he didn't have the right voice. Talked about Esther. And how, yes, she was born for such a time as this, but it also meant taking the place of Queen Vashti. And so it's not just a happy, exciting, we can be strong in this call all the time. Sometimes there are difficult pieces to being in these spaces as well. And of course, Jesus, we know, you know, Jesus was on the outskirts, and we can maybe look over that. It's sort of like when we talk about Martin Luther King Jr., people can praise him for the goodness that he did, but his actual life and leadership was very challenging because he wasn't accepted. There was,
well, he went to jail.
Yeah, jail and beatings and threats on his family.
Yeah.
And hopefully we're not at that point in our ministry and advocacy. But I think it helps us to remember, A, that there are things in scripture. We don't have to do this by ourselves, and we are equipped to be resilient, but also B, that it's not always so straightforward and cut and dry of how this might look. There's going to be some trial and error. There are going to be some folks who might be upset as we try something new or something different. The church I served in New Jersey, a couple of years before, had to switch the orientation of their sanctuary. So they flipped the whole thing around because of accessibility purpose. They had these really steep stairs. And so it was really hard for folks to get in, especially if you had any mobility issues. And so they actually lost like 50% of their membership, people who were upset that they were moving this historic church around. Wild to think about that something so simple that really made a difference, that folks kind of like here could come in to worship on the same level, not have to do any stairs, and be able to participate in worship. But also, you know, folks were really upset about it. I'm sure that's not a big deal. So just things to consider, that sometimes we have to have some challenging conversations or be a little bit open to what might happen in the process, or sometimes even apology is necessary. But that gets us back to Paul's classes on truth and reconciliation a little bit too.
Are you talking, Jack?
I missed that. Was there a question? I missed the question.
Oh, we weren't sure if you were talking to us on mute. Yeah. That's great. Well, I'm gonna have to run as well to get ready for worship. But starting next week, we are gonna start our Lent series on evangelism, which is gonna be really exciting. And we'll have more questions than answers per usual. That's at least how I'm approaching it. But we do hope that you will join us again next Sunday, and we'll look forward to seeing you all in worship here shortly.